Colts Nation, if helmets or helmet accessories interest you, make sure to go to greengridiron.com and use code INDSYN at checkout to get the discount code with it. Whether it's mini helmets, full-size helmets, visors, clips, whatever it may be, different face masks, different variations of helmets, alternate helmets, whatever the case, you can get it at Green Gridiron. And again, that's code INDSYN at checkout for the discount. Thanks for stopping by for another video, and now let's get into it. What's going on, Colts Nation? Appreciate you joining me for another video where this one we talked a little bit about the defense earlier. We're going to talk about the defense again because something that we talked about and the trail went cold, it's starting to pop back up. Some news came out today from Tom Pelissero, I believe, was the first one on it, talking about how negotiations there with the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson have kind of fallen apart, right? There hasn't really been any new ground gained from that aspect. And so the Bengals are actually listening to trade talks, something that they really weren't willing to do, right? Even when we were talking about it before, the Bengals weren't willing to trade Trey Hendrickson. They weren't seriously listening to trade calls, but now we're at a point in this situation where they are listening and where they are taking serious inquiries on this. And according to Jordan Schultz, he says that the Panthers, Browns, and Colts are among the teams that have shown interest in trading for Bengals All-Pro Trey Hendrickson. An in-division and in-state trade is highly unlikely, and any deal will be tough regardless. Cincinnati is believed to want an impact player or two, plus a draft pick in return. So at the end of the day, it'll be, what are the Colts willing to give up, right? If you're going to pay a guy, then with the money that he's going to warrant, right, these guys are making massive money on the defensive line, especially on the edge, right? Myles Garrett making $40 million a year. TJ Watt, I believe, making just north of $40 million a year, whatever it is. These guys are making ridiculous money. So how are we going to be able to cover that? What are we going to be able to do? Obviously, there would probably be a restructure for this year because I believe he's only making $19 million a year. And I say only, but, you know, in terms of, you know, what he's going to be wanting to make, there's going to have to be some adjustment. So what would that look like? And I come back to exactly what we've talked about before. I think the obvious thing here for what the Bengals need is you trade a guy like Kwity Paye, guy on a fifth-year option. They don't have to pay him. They can give him essentially the contract that they were going to give Trey. They still get a discount at edge. They get a younger guy, somebody they can have for a little while. And Kwity needs to be, I feel like, just in a different situation to really be able to grow into what he could be, right? It obviously just hasn't really worked out here for Kwity. So I would say, you know, if we're talking about making a trade for Trey Hendrickson, you got to include a player plus being able to give him a draft pick. So you give him Kwity Paye, and since that's not really necessarily the impact player that they might want, really the star player that they might want for Trey Hendrickson, you give them a replacement, a cheaper replacement for Trey Hendrickson, somebody making $13 million a year on his fifth-year option this season, and then you decide if you want to pay him in the future. So you get a discount this year. But then you give him a draft pick. Since we're paying Trey Hendrickson, I don't think you're giving him a first. You're not giving him a second. I think you could get away with Kwity in a third. Right? I feel like that's where the negotiation, and I wouldn't start there. I'd start with Kwity or Sampson plus a sixth-round pick, right? And start the negotiation there, or a fifth-round pick and start there so they understand that you're serious, right? And that you're willing to go down this road of negotiation. And then through the negotiation, if you can get away with getting rid of Kwity and a third-round pick to bring in Trey Hendrickson, the last two seasons led the league in the NFL with 17.5 sacks in each of them, right? I think you go get a guy like that for that price and then pay him, who knows what he wants to be paid at 30 years old, right? Lou Anarumo was on Kay Adams' show earlier this week when she went to Indy, and he was talking. She asked him about Trey, and Lou Anarumo basically said, like, he's a young 30. He's a guy who's always in the weight room and somebody who on the field certainly looks like somebody who has plenty of years left. And Lou Anarumo believes he has plenty of years left. So, you know, with the new system coming in with the familiarity of, Joe Bacci and what he's able to do already in this defense for this team, what we've seen from him both in training camp and in the preseason games, you bring in another guy that's familiar with Lou Anarumo and familiar with what he wants on the defensive line. It can only help the room, and it would help this defense. Now, and I just continue to think, you think about a defensive line that has Liatu Latu, Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner, Trey Hendrickson, for 75% or more of the snaps those four are on the field together. Oh my goodness, quarterbacks would be in trouble, right? For all the plays that Latu, we saw it again in the Packers game. Latu getting to the quarterback but can't finish the play, right? For all of those, you're going to have Trey Hendrickson coming from the other side, right? You got, everybody remembers 98, 93, bring the heat Boulevard. We're going to be right back to that, right? 97, 91, bring the heat Boulevard. We actually might have a 91. I'd have to check on that. But nonetheless, bringing Trey Hendrickson in to be on this defensive line, especially with the injuries that we have in the secondary, if you're able to get to the quarterback, it helps the secondary immensely. So I think going and getting Trey Hendrickson, with the way the situation looks for us right now, with the injuries stacking up and with what Trey Hendrickson can provide for us, I think this is a no-brainer. You got to go get him. If we're interested in him, I think this is something that has to be considered. Right now, obviously, the Browns are included in that. But, as Jordan Schultz said, in division and in state, not likely to happen, right? And the Browns and the Bengals are in the same division. The Browns and Bengals are in the same state. So it's likely us and the Panthers. And if they want to, now with the way the situation has gone, they might not be so worried about doing right by the player. But if they would be in a situation where, hey, let's try to do right by the player, put him somewhere that could be advantageous for him, but at the same time, making sure we maintain a position that's advantageous for us, maybe that could be the Colts, right? We have all our draft picks. I don't know what the Panthers situation is. I didn't look into that. I'm sure they have plenty of draft picks themselves, but I do think the Colts would be wise to go and get Trey Hendrickson. I think it'd be foolish not to send a serious offer to try to get Trey Hendrickson. And hey, hopefully I'm making you guys another video later today or tomorrow where we're talking about going and getting Trey Hendrickson, where we're talking about breaking news. We got the guy. I hope I'm able to make that video soon. I hope I'm able to make a video soon about Anthony Richardson being named the starter. I think that seems pretty inevitable at this point. It's not like Daniel Jones really did more than Anthony Richardson through training camp and preseason. Honestly, I think Anthony has done enough to win that competition. So, with everything stacking up the way it is, I think this could be something that the Colts are actually doing for this upcoming season. Going and getting Trey Hendrickson, it was something that was a little bit of a fantasy when we talked about it earlier in this offseason, but seems like something that could actually be somewhat likely as we go forward. So please, if you enjoy the content, of course, hit the like button, but make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you have notifications on so you get updated when there's news. Okay, I don't work today. I don't work tomorrow. Hopefully there's some news very soon on these subjects, and I'm able to get these videos to you guys as soon as possible. So again, subscribe, notifications on. Make sure you're coming back when these updates are happening. Of course, I appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.